everyone, it's the Miserable Movie Man back once again with another video. This will be a fairly brief review of Thunderbolts, which I just saw last week in the cinema, and there will be spoilers ahead. I guess folks know that I'm a huge Marvel fan. Comic book fan since I was a kid. And in my lifetime, did not think I would see so much comic book content out there. In fact, probably so much that the market is saturated. And of course, Marvel has had a bit of a dip for maybe at least, I would say, 5 years now. There is a bit of buzz, obviously, with the new films coming out and new potentially Avengers films and RDJ coming back. But really, there hasn't been a lot of hype and a lot of anticipation over anything lately. And the things that people have been watching have fell flat and not resonated with audiences. But I heard many good things about Thunderbolts. People who were saying it's a great film, really great, kind of back to the Marvel type of film of old. And when I watched it in the cinema, I did enjoy it. I thought it was certainly an enjoyable film, and I'll get into some of the reasons why in a minute. Did I think it was a really great film? Not so much. It really followed the sort of tried and tested formula of some of the older films. Good banter between the characters, semi-decent villain, and fairly standard, typical superhero fare. There is one aspect that I really liked about it, and that was sort of Yelena's story of where she is in her life and things. So that was really cool. But other than that, emotionally didn't hit that strong. Action sequences were good, but not great. I was a bit disappointed that, the trailer looked great. I mean, especially with the version of Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. But they didn't use that song really much at all until towards the end, and so I was disappointed with that. But yeah, it was an okay film for me. I think, overall rating is probably 6.5 out of 10. Certainly pleasant to watch. Nice to see it in a big screen. Nothing actually about it, especially from like a set piece perspective, that really, I guess, demanded a large scale IMAX cinema type of treatment. So I saw it in a pretty big theater, but yeah, the special effects, because this was focused on obviously a group of characters that don't really have a lot of special powers. I mean, there is there is Ghost, I think, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, it was good. I always enjoy watching some of the characters on screen. I enjoy Sebastian Stan as Bucky. He never really disappoints. I thought Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina was okay, nice, a little bit hammy at times, a little bit caricature-ish, but not too bad. I think David Harbour really does ham it up, but in terms of doing that, it really suits the character. And Wyatt Russell was just okay as John Walker. I thought, they had a few reveals about why his attitude is the way he is, but they really didn't go into it enough. So, overall, it was an interesting plot. I thought that there were... I haven't read a lot of Sentry in the comics or Sentry Void stuff, but I knew about it. So, having a supervillain that is capable of taking down the whole Avengers, will probably go toe-to-toe with Superman. Hey, I know that's a controversial opinion, but I'm first and foremost a Superman fan, of course. Having Sentry as the main villain with a group of folks that really can't do anything was an interesting choice. And it goes back to Yelena's arc of trying to find some meaning in her life, feeling that extreme loneliness, not really knowing how to handle it or where to go for help. And then finding this, stereotypical, very cliche, misfit, ragtag team that she found, which gave her a bit more purpose in life. That was a good way of tackling Sentry with his psychological issues and his personality issues. I think they could have probably delved more into that and really plowed a little bit more of the depths of the character, but they didn't have that much time. The film was, just over 2 hours, so they had a few different arcs. Bucky being congressman, that's an interesting sort of update. Not sure where that's going to go, to be honest, but this is a guy that killed people in his past, so is that okay for a congressman? Is it okay to have a serial killer? Or maybe not serial killer. Is it okay to have a contract killer that was under mind control? Be a congressman? Who knows? But let's get into the star of the show, which is Florence Pugh as Yelena. And just electric on screen. I thought every time she was on screen, couldn't take her eyes off her. And she delivered a really great performance. She handled that aspect of where the character is and what she was feeling and how she came out of it really well. So that was the sort of shining light of the movie for me. I thought that was really good. And of course, Florence Pugh is very nice to look at as well. So that helps. I thought Lewis Pullman as Bob did an okay job. It's kind of weird at the start, the way that they sort of immediately embrace him and include him in everything they're doing. I don't know how they think Bob can climb up a 50-foot shaft, having really had no knowledge of who he is or whether he has any training of any kind. So that was definitely a little bit ridiculous, but of course they did it for the banter, I guess. The new Captain America, or I guess US agent, or whoever he wants to call himself, you know, he was an active foil for folks. And if you really want to get into the character of John Walker, I mean, just go to the comics, it gets quite dark. So they didn't quite go there, which was a shame. But I guess there were hints at it, and it was something that they, again, probably needed in the film. Mel and Congressman Gary were just okay. I didn't see the point of Holt at all, really, other than to shout a bit and maybe get killed later on. But the way that they did Sentry was interesting, I think, because obviously Sentry and Voyager have got this history in the comics, and as I said, I didn't read it, but I know a bit about it, and the way that they I guess the way they portrayed Void and his powers, it visually looked really cool. Let's start with that. Visually it looked really cool, the way they had him in all black and the way that they had these sort of folks sort of disappear. And a brave choice to rescue a little girl and have her disappear. But it was a bit rushed, I think, at the end. You know, they hinted at it at the start, and there were enough clues, I think, for the audience to pick up pretty quickly what was going on. But breaking out of your sort of psychic imprisonment rooms and then being able to find Bob seemed far too quick for both Yelena and Thunderbolts. So I felt that they could have, again, they could have spent more time on that or handled it better, or really, had more insight into where everyone was at in terms of their fears and their worst moments in life. You really only got to see Yelena's in detail, and that was a shame. I guess everyone overcame theirs pretty quickly, and we never saw that struggle. So that was disappointing. Obviously having everyone come back was cool, but it was interesting the way they chose to showcase the characters. As I said at the start, they don't have superpowers really, and they're this misfit ragtag team. So having them fight each other, having them being pursued, and then just having them rescue civilians was, I guess, the only logical choice. But we've had so much of that in the previous Marvel films, Captain America films and others, that it didn't really have the impact that I think, it could have had in a Marvel movie. If you had them infiltrating more, or, planning more, or showcasing why that, even though they don't have too many powers, they are superheroes really, then that would have been cool. And finding each other was okay after a while, but then because they were all there to try and kill each other, it got a bit silly. It was just like, okay, he's fighting her now, she's fighting her, they're fighting him, whatever. That went on too long. And having them evade Valentina's forces was also just meh for me. There were a couple of cool images with Bucky and stuff, and obviously they tried to get the banter, as I said. They tried to get the one-liners in. Some of them landed for me, some of them didn't. It was not bad, but not great. But again, having them at the end, just rescuing people, knowing they can't handle Bob was probably the only choice if you're having Sentry as a villain. And Sentry with that level of power and not really killing anyone, was that intentional? Was that because Bob doesn't really want to kill people? Because, I mean, Sentry is capable of mass annihilation and carnage on a level where, you know, you're looking sort of Hulk level. But again, they chose not to do that, and they had New York being blacked out. And then let's go on to the title with the asterisk. Everyone's wondering what the asterisk is for. But it's the New Avengers. And as that end scene showed, it's going to set up a clash with good old Sam Wilson. And see where that goes in future films. I mean, having him infringe on their copyright and throw trademark lawsuits against them is, I guess, not the most interesting way of doing it, but it was okay. So as I said, the film is like, you know, probably 6.5 for me. Glad I saw it. And then let's get talking about the final post-credit scene. I saw in the credits that they're going, okay, the Fantastic Four music is in there, and I thought, is it? Did they throw it in as a cue somewhere in the film? Didn't see that, didn't hear that. And then, of course, you have the scene where the Fantastic Four ship comes in, how Marvel is going to link all of these separate characters, probably have each of them have their own universe, X-Men universe, Fantastic Four universe, whatever, leading up to Secret Wars. I'm sure that's how they're bringing in Doom, as having him in an alternate reality than the one we've been watching in the MCU. So that scene alone was pretty interesting. Hopefully gets a bit of excitement. I'm not that excited for Fantastic Four First Steps. We've seen FF before. We've seen Giant Folks in Eternals. What are they going to do that's that different? How are they going to portray these characters in a way that we haven't seen before, or that really stays so true to their core that, you know, it makes it riveting for us to watch. I didn't see much of the Fantastic Four trailer of Thing being, I guess, reviled and having him suffer really a crisis of confidence and personality with who he's turned into. Everyone seems to love him and kids seem to adore him, so that's a very different take on things. No pun intended. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Fantastic Four plays out. But in terms of Thunderbolts and how they will interact with them, who knows? But it was just that throwaway bit at the end to try and get people excited in a film that for me was overall okay. Good, but not great. Enjoyable to watch, but I think if I'd watched this on a small screen, it would have been just okay for me as well. So there you have it. That was my review. That was what I thought of Thunderbolts *, the New Avengers. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you seen it? Did you agree, disagree? Any points that I missed? As usual, please like, share, subscribe to help support the channel. And catch you next time.